Yes.
Okay, so they're gonna start with in person at least, just like the ball rolling while you're still working on this.
Okay.
You good?
No, we need the video.
That is the video. That's the video.
You gotta start it. Click the arrow up. Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, we will get started. Our neighbors on Zoom can hear us, but they can't see us just yet, but we do want to respect
Mute.
y'all's time here. We will
We can see
start
you.
with our in-person testimony. We do have two sitting city council members here to testify. So we'll start with Council Member Hudson, followed by Council Member Osei.
Could you please send me this credential?
And I'll remind everyone, each speaker has 3 minutes approximately.
Thank you so much. Hold on, I'm going to stand on this.
If I log into my user, can I be allowed to only see who's speaking?
Thank you. Okay.
Or why should I?
My name is Crystal Hudson. I'm the New York City Council member for Brooklyn's 35th District, which encompasses the neighborhoods of Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. Thank you to Chair Walcott, Executive Director Dr. Plateau, and the New York City District and Commission for the opportunity to provide testimony today. I previously submitted testimony in May in which I explained my connection to this district and would like to repeat some of that today. I'm a third-generation Brooklynite and the daughter and granddaughter of Jamaican and Honduran immigrants. I was the only child of a single mother who served as a nurse for more than 30 years at Harlem Hospital and raised me in the same Prospect Heights community her father laid roots in when he immigrated from Jamaica in the 1940s. I now live in the home my mother worked hard to buy 30 years ago, and I have now planted roots of my own here in central Brooklyn. My story is not unique. The 35th District is home to many folks like me from various backgrounds, from multi-generational Caribbean immigrant families in the Lubavitch community in Crown Heights and Bedford-Stuyvesant to longtime Black American families in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, and Prospect Heights, all of whom have deep ties to these communities. More than 14,000 of these residents live at the 5 NYCHA developments in the district: Atlantic Terminal, Lafayette Gardens, Ingersoll Houses, Farragut Houses, and Walt Whitman Houses, the last 3 of which used to be one development called Fort Greene Houses. These developments serve as much of the cultural fabric of the 35th District. Our district is also home to newer, predominantly white Brooklynites who want to plant roots in a diverse community and contribute to its growth and prosperity. Diversity and history, in particular Black history and culture, is what makes the 35th District so unique. We also have the Black retail owners and restaurateurs who set up shop along Fulton Street, Myrtle Avenue, Washington Avenue, Franklin Avenue, Nostrand Avenue, and more. The families that come out every year to the West Indian Day Parade along Eastern Parkway, and the ones who come out in droves each year to the Brooklyn Academy of Music to enjoy Dance Africa. In addition to BAM and its host of performing arts facilities, families of all backgrounds pay regular visits to the Brooklyn Museum, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, the Jewish Children's Museum, Mark Morris Dance Center, Theater for a New Audience, and so many other smaller performing arts spaces and artistic hubs. It is these people and cultural institutions that are the reason the 35th District is so special. As the Commission considers new boundaries for councilmanic districts, I urge you to prioritize the needs of the very communities that have never been prioritized before and ensure Central Brooklyn retains its unique characteristic as home to a myriad of Brooklynites from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds as it has for generations. This councilmanic district has been home to the West Indian Day American Parade since the 1930s and the Chabad headquarters since 1940. Our current district is centered around numerous iconic community and cultural destinations, and these hubs serve the numerous communities of the 35th District and provide unique community services from recreation to culture to education. Thankfully, the 35th District has a population deviation under 5% with the current lines and should not need to see radical changes to its boundaries to fit the charter required deviation requirement. With specific regard to district boundaries, we must ensure Flatbush Avenue remains the western boundary of this district, as has historically been the case. To move any district boundaries across the de facto highway will only separate communities of interest and prevent the cohesion of a unified district that has been standing together for generations. I will be submitting written testimony along with a proposed map. Thank you. I was trying to read very fast. Hit the 3 minutes. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Councilmember Hudson. I'll pause for a second and note that our chair, Dennis Walcott, is participating on Zoom. So I'll go ahead and give him a moment to introduce himself.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to all. I apologize for not being there, but I am doing grandparent duty today. So I am with my two grandchildren. So my apologies, but I will be participating and listening in the entire hearing. So thank you.
Everyone got that? Thank you, Chair Walcott. Councilmember Osei?
I gotta step down for this. Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Walcott, Dr. Flateau. My name is Chi Osei, a New York City Council member representing the 36th District, including the neighborhoods of Bed-Stuy and Northern Crown Heights. I'm glad to have the opportunity to participate in this essential part of the democratic process in which we draw the lines that determine our representation at the most local and intimate level of government. As a current representative for my district, I'm deeply familiar with the schools, communities, businesses, and blocks that comprise the 36th Councilmatic District. I testify today on behalf of my neighbors and in defense of their best interests. Bed-Stuy and Northern Crown Heights are historically Black neighborhoods, famous nationwide for their cultural contributions and bonded through collective memory. The two neighborhoods have grown closer together with the influx of Caribbean immigrants whose food, music, and fashion are now integral parts of our shared spaces. While clear cultural boundaries exist between ours and neighboring districts, the cohesion of Bed-Stuy and North Crown Heights is strong, and our unification in a single district has served us well for decades. On net, since the last census, we have lost only a few thousand residents. This would justify slightly expanding our borders to realign our population with the council district standard. Recognizing the strong and growing connection between Bed-Stuy and North Crown Heights, the most logical and culturally responsive way to do so would be to unify North Crown Heights, a cohesive and defined historic district occupying several blocks above Eastern Parkway into District 36. Our neighborhoods deserve a unified district to provide them with a unified voice, which they can use to advocate for their shared interests. For fair demographic representation, for fair democratic representation, I urge this body to draw for my neighbors what they need and deserve. A district closely mirroring its current successful lines, expanded to include the whole of North Crown Heights. As someone that grew up in North Crown Heights, had a father that grew up in North Crown Heights, and a grandmother that moved to North Crown Heights from Haiti, I understand the deep Black history that needs to be preserved under a single council member, and align with the historic deep Black history and representation within Bed-Stuy. While they are two neighborhoods, they are two very cohesive neighborhoods, and that is seen through the representation that the community has seen for decades. And the unification of North Crown Heights is something that residents have been asking for and wanting to see through representation, so that everyone is represented equally. So thank you so much for letting me testify this afternoon, and looking forward to hearing and seeing all of you soon. Thanks.
We're going to continue with our in-person testimony. Next, we have William Stanford Jr.
I just want to inform the executive director and Dennis, who could pass with Master P, starting public hearings before 6 p.m. is a bad idea, which I mentioned in Queens. Okay, and you made some careless mistakes. You have a microphone on this side, you have no microphone on that side. So those who are on that side have to squirm like an octopus in order to reach this microphone. Not very swift. Okay. Regarding this public hearing, you didn't mention where exactly was scheduled to be held. You had no poster signs. I asked a female NYC guard, I should say, where it was scheduled to be held, and she ignored me, which I don't appreciate. If she was aware of this event, she should have known where exactly it was scheduled to be held. Okay, and regarding that book you gave us, does it could include the city district lines? No. Does it include the count? Well, forget that. It should have the council district lines. You should mention, put them in the book, and also who's representing them. it'd be easy for us to testify if you include the maps in the book you gave us. In Queens, you didn't post any maps. Here in Brooklyn, you didn't post any maps, which I find disturbing. You need to post the maps from this point on. Include the maps, include the council member, regarding the council members, include their names and indicate which districts they represent. Okay, also in the future, please start your public hearings at a time when more people can make it. Please start them after the 6th, not before. Don't start them at a time when people are still working. That's not very swift. If you want to continue to start them before 6, that's fine with me. But this is what you can expect. Okay, so is this the New York City District Commission, or is it the MTA with sense of money thrown away? Because this is what would happen if the MTA was here, public hearing wise. You would have seen a dead attendance, a dead auditorium. Don't imitate the MTA with sense of money thrown away, please. Don't imitate the RGB, aka the Rank Artists Board. Okay, as I said before, as I said on Monday, take your time and do it right like the SOS band. Okay, that's all I have to say. And also, regarding your future public hearings, you need to advertise them better. Because I stated on Monday, the event you held before that day, regarding the event you held before that day, I was unaware of them. So as I said, take your time and do it right like the SOS band.
Thank you. Next, we have Kimberly Whitehead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Walcott, Executive Director Flateau, and the New York City Districting Commission for the opportunity to provide testimony regarding the Commission's upcoming work to draft a new districting plan for the New York City Council districts. My name is Kimberly Whitehead, Senior Vice President for Strategy and Chief of Staff at Medgar Evers College. My college is located in the 35th Council District. Established in 1970, Medgar Evers College is a multicultural, multi-generational college with social justice in its DNA, born out of the unwavering and stalwart advocacy of the citizens of Central Brooklyn. Today, I proudly stand representing more than 4,100 students and 908 faculty and staff who call Medgar Evers College home through their studies and work and possess a great love for this college and this community. More specifically, 276 students and 68 dedicated team members reside in District 35. Medgar Evers, through our strong academic programs, academic support services, and community advocacy programs, serves as a beacon of educational, cultural, and social activity for the citizens of Crown Heights. One such community advocacy program is our Transition Academy that not only provides wraparound services for students, but also addresses housing and food insecurity for the broader Crown Heights community. 84% of our students who attend MEC also stay in the state they know and love and use their talent, skills, and knowledge as contributors to the workforce in support of the state and local economy. As a trained geneticist, I know well the power of diversity and the robustness, resilience, and fortitude diversity contributes to organizations and communities. The strength of our diverse community is what makes the 35th District home. Historically, the 35th District has included residents from different backgrounds. We need to work to ensure the 35th District maintains its diversity. The Commission should prioritize the needs of the very communities that have historically not been prioritized to ensure Central Brooklyn retains its unique characteristics as home to Brooklyn residents from diverse and racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. As such, I urge you to keep the district lines as similar as possible to what they currently are. This district has a population deviation from the ideal population of less than 5% under the current lines and does not require changes to its boundaries to fit the charter required deviation. Commissioners, I urge you to ensure main arteries like Flatbush Avenue continue to be boundaries of this district to maintain the integrity of existing communities. It is imperative that we ensure council districts truly include neighborhoods and communities. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Norman LaFond.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Norman LaFond. I'm the chair of the Manhattan Policy Forum, an Upper West Side good government club in Manhattan. My wife Audrey and I are long-term residents of the Upper West Side and Park West Village. Audrey has lived in Park West Village since 1979, and I have as well since we married in the year 2000. I'm here to testify regarding the growth of District 7 in our neighborhood as part of the redistricting process. We are fortunate to have a neighborhood rich in economic, ethnic, and religious diversity. We have everything in this area: facilities for low-income elderly, public housing, middle-class condominiums, luxury high-rises, rent-stabilized tenants, and market-rate tenants. We have the elderly, young families with school-aged children, and middle-aged empty nesters. But we manage to work for each other for a very special and inclusive community. Unfortunately, our city council district lines split the community in two on Broadway. This east-west divide has been an old one, splitting District 6 and 7, and may have been useful in the distant past, but it's clearly no longer useful. The community on either side of Broadway has shared common interests and needs. We shop at the same stores, we worship together, and volunteer together, and yet we live in a district that arbitrarily splits us apart. For example, my wife and I attend services at Holy Name of Jesus Church on 97th in Amsterdam. We also attend Anshe Chesed Synagogue on 100th and West End, and we are joined by our congregations that live on both sides of Broadway. And another example, the commercial corridor between 100th and 96th Streets along Columbus Avenue runs through Park West Village in District 7. But this also serves many of the constituents in the adjacent parts of District 6. Residents on both sides of Broadway are invested in the success of this commercial corridor. Our community shops there and works there. Finally, our residents on either side of Broadway take the 1 trains and the A trains and use the same exit off of the West Side Hardway to get home. We face the same sanitation issues as evidenced by our shared commitment to cleaning up Broadway Mall and advocating for more composting and other such projects. We are joined in our efforts to pursue many shared projects, including the park-to-park open streets that spans the entire West Side down 103rd Street. And so it seems that the most beneficial way for District 7 to increase is by expanding west of Broadway and south of 109th as you may deem necessary. It is critical, for example, that Park West Village, where I happen to live, remain a part of District 7. This complex, which includes many rent-stabilized apartments and hundreds of middle-class homeowners along 97th and 100th, from Central Park West to Amsterdam, constantly turn out high numbers in every election. In fact, we brag about it. We have the highest voter participation rate in the state. And they have found a strong voice in local politics because they have become engaged in what's going on in their neighborhood. Our voice would be greatly diluted if we were forced to find new footing in a district that has different priorities and very different needs. And we would be cut off from our neighbors to the north that are part of our neighborhood family. As for one other point that you might want to look at, I would also point out that the redistricting process can also remedy another obvious issue in the current map on the Upper West Side, Manhattan Valley, which is that the towers on the park complex on 110th, there are 2 of them, one on the north side, one on the south side. One is in District 7. The north side of the street is in District 10. I'll have to be District 9, excuse me. So they both clearly should be in District 7. They have a common board. They have their, they're obviously the same condominium association. So that creates some problems for them as well. By the way, the District 7 side has managed to be able to get a voting site put into the building, which has been helpful to getting increasing voter participation as well. So I thank you very much, and I hope that you're able to help us with this problem. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to our neighbors on Zoom. Who do we have up first?
We have Frank LaChapelle.
Frank LaChapelle.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Well, I do want to say thank you to the commission for letting me have my testimony today, and also to the public that is listening live. Good evening. My name is Frank LaChapelle, and I am a lifelong resident and voter of City Council District 36, which comprise of Best-Eye and North Crown Heights. In this district, my mother gave birth to me at Will Hospital, where I was raised in Tompkins housing, where I gained most of my early childhood public education. And now I currently have the opportunity to sit as a member in my local community board 3. When my parents migrated from the Dominican Republic, they landed in Brooklyn, more specifically Best-Eye, as did many of my fellow neighbors. In this district, we've grown in culture, arts, and community. Once you step foot in this district, anyone from any walk of life will feel like they're at home. The residents of our community have stayed the same because of that same home-like feeling, which ultimately laid down a rich history that's been shared with generations and generations to come. I ask that we continue to leave the maps same or similar to how it's been for the past decade. One word that comes to mind is relationships. We grow together, unified, and caring for one another through relationships. Not only have we grown that relationship with each other, but we've grown also the relationship with our local representative, who is the champion for our district. It is in the best interest of the neighborhood that we continue to have this relationship, but continue to work together with that bond that we built. With that bond and with the potential of the map remaining the same, we as the Best-Eye and North Crown Heights family can accomplish more for the present and the future. It is imperative that the Districting Commission keep that in mind so that we can continue to build upon the culture, arts, and community that we built hard, that it took very hard for us to obtain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can take another neighbor from Zoom.
We have Paul Spring.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Paul Spring.
Yes.
Paul Spring, are you there? We can move on to someone else.
Wong.
Stephanie Wong.
Hi, I'm here. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Wong. I'm a resident in Bensonhurst for almost 40 years, and I am the president of the United Chinese Association of Brooklyn, where I founded this organization 20 years ago. Asian Pacific American community in Bensonhurst is a community of interest and should be kept whole as possible in a district. Currently, Bensonhurst is divided into 4 city council districts. So APAS are not a majority in any of these 4 current districts. Over the last 10 years, the APA population of New York City increased by about 345,000 residents. Between 2010 and 2020, the APA population in Brooklyn alone increased by 43%. To keep the APA community in Bensonhurst as whole as possible, we believe a district can be created that the whole result in a near majority APA city council district. This is possible with a 40% overall increase in APAs and a 46% increase among the voting age population in Brooklyn. There are now over 250,000 APAs in Brooklyn alone. This means around 1 out of 4 APAs in New York City is a resident of Brooklyn. Many of these APA live in an area that spans from parts of Central Park, Bensonhurst, Homecrest, and the Sheepshead Bay. Unlike Manhattan's Chinatown or Flushing's Chinatown, Bensonhurst does not have a crowd of people and the noisy street vendors. There are Chinese grocery store, restaurants, nail hair salon, auto repair shop, daycare centers, community centers for the elderly, medical clinic, and a Chinese Christian church, a Salvation Army that offers parades in Cantonese. I have personally witnessed the growth in the APA community in Bensonhurst by seeing the number of Chinese immigrant families move into this neighborhood to settle. As you may be aware, the APA community in Bensonhurst that is currently spread across 4 city council districts share many community resources and the needs, including language access, culturally sensitive services, public safety, affordable housing, public transportation lines, and the linguistic landscape. It is extremely important that the APA community be kept whole as possible, mainly because there is a strong need for more equitable community representation and to have our voices, including in the decision-making process, for example, with issues like incorporating more homeless shelter into our neighborhoods than other neighborhoods, fighting anti-Asian hate crime in the neighborhood than other neighborhoods and the subway, and confronting the invisibility of anti-Asian races in our community. Our power should not be diluted. This will give us more equal power to have our need for more culturally sensitive bilingual services addressed. Therefore, I urge the Commission to recognize the community of interest, hereby drawing lines that do not divide the community, and instead keeping the APA community in Bensonhurst as whole as possible. Please help us. We need you guys' help. Thank you for the commissioner give us this chance to express our concern, and we really need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll start alternating between in person and Zoom. So we'll move to Luis Cruz.
Madam Chair, can I just ask the speakers, this is Commissioner Go, to, when they talk about communities, to give us a general definition of the boundaries of the community they're talking about. Because our first 2 speakers, our council members, both talked about Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights, and to get a better sense of what they think is the community of interest that should be kept together. I would, to make sure that we understand what communities of interest they think should be kept together, I'd like them to just quickly go over what the boundaries of the districts that they think the new district should encompass. And perhaps we could just quickly ask the people who've spoken to spend 10 seconds or 15 seconds defining the boundaries of the district, whether or not it's the current district or the slightly changed districts based on the communities of interest that they represent.
So just so we're clear, we're asking that each speaker, if you can, spend maybe 10, 15 seconds kind of explaining the boundaries of the current district that you're referring to. I think that's the gist of the request. Yeah.
I would like them to just describe the boundaries of the district they'd like to see, whether it's based on the current districts or based on the community of interest, where the communities are located. But I did, as I've noted, the first two council members who spoke talked about the same communities, and I'd like to have a clearer idea of what the boundaries are that they are advocating for. Really not necessarily the current districts, but what they would like to see.
One second. Yeah. Okay, after Luis Cruz testifies, then we can have the council members come up and clarify the boundaries and communities of interest piece.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Cruz. I am a resident. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Cruz. I am a resident of Washington Heights in District 7. I am here to testify regarding the growth of City Council District 7 and 10 in Upper Manhattan. I urge the commission to include the Polo Grounds towers as part of the District 10 and to keep the 160s and 150 west of Amsterdam as part of District 7. This approach will ensure that Black and Latino communities in Upper Manhattan continue to have adequate representation. Washington Heights has been always represented by at least 2 members of City Council, and it is crucial that this continue to be the case. By having representation from 2 council members, the programs in our community, have more success getting funding from the city. We have strong advocacy for the challenges that we face. The commission were to put Washington Heights in just 1 district. We will lose money, programs, and we will lose our voice. The Latino population in District 7 will especially be heard if Washington Heights were cut out of the district, as will dramatically change who votes in the district. As a young man, I can also tell you that our schools need as much help as they can get. This is why it is important that our community health academy of the Heights, the only high school in District 7, remain in District 7. If the school is moved to District 10, that will mean that District 10 is now responsible for 3 high schools, while District 7 will be responsible for none. Our schools need more attention than that. The best way to ensure that District 10 and District 7 grow in a way that protects the interests of each community in District 10 to include the Polo Grounds. The Polo Grounds is the home to the people with the same background and facing the same challenges as the people in District 10. They will also have the same interest electing the council member responsible for Coggins-Buff, which is already part of District 10. Each side of Coggins-Buff should have a say in who will represent the area. We need our communities. We need empowered communities. We need our communities to be represented so that our communities improve for a better future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we'll have, I think Councilmember Hudson is ready to come back up.
Sorry, I didn't get the time. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, I think both of us in our testimonies said that we would like, and I know obviously it's, redistricting, but we would like our borders to be kept as similar to our current lines as possible. And, I guess I also noted at the very end of my testimony that I'm going to be submitting a map. So the map that I submit along with my longer written testimony will have all the lines and the borders and the specific streets. But I would just note that I think there should be some sort of effort to keep community districts together and whole. And so, I have on the western side of my district, Atlantic Avenue as a natural sort of dividing line between my district and Councilmember Osei's district. And so I think, we can explore options, or you all should potentially explore options to use a major thoroughfare like that. But, I didn't come today with the specific lines because I'll be submitting the testimony, written testimony that would include the map with specific borders. Thank you.
Councilmember Osei.
Hi again, and I would absolutely love to uplift and echo the sentiments of Councilmember Hudson, especially in terms of hoping that the lines can stay intact as possible, as they have been, over the past 10 years. And this has been, an evaluation that we've made, or I've made, I'll speak for myself, with constituents both in Bed-Stuy and in North Crown Heights. Bed-Stuy, again, is a unified district within how it's drawn out currently as is, and that's very important to the constituency and the community. And the maps as they are do speak for themselves, but I also do want to uplift, a statement that I made within my testimony that Northern Crown Heights would also, and the residents of Northern Crown Heights would truly appreciate and honestly succeed off of being a unified district. So there is a natural border at Eastern Parkway, which really signifies, the split between Northern Crown Heights and Southern Crown Heights. And that would be, an additional, expansion to the district, given that there was a slight, a loss of population over the past 10 years. I hope that made sense, but I also will submit testimony as well as clarification on specific avenues and streets that would give you a better picture of what the line should look like. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now we'll head back to Zoom. Who do we have up next, please?
We're going to try Paul Spring.
Paul Spring.
Hello, thank you for that. Switched to my phone because my computer wasn't working.
Got it.
Yeah, I want to follow up Mr. Osei and earlier Frank LaChapelle in asking that District 36 not be changed and not be and not have Crown Heights removed. I think that the current district lines work in great harmony with Assembly District 56, and they maintain a whole historic Bed-Stuy in one piece, as well as keeping North Crown Heights within. So just wanted to say that piece, and I'll also be submitting written testimony with more detail.
Thank you. I think we can take someone else from Zoom.
Okay, we have Zulema Blair.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Zulema Blair.
Zulema Blair.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Zulema Blair. I'm a professor at Medgar Evers College. I'm also the Redistricting Research Director for the Center for Law and Social Justice and the Interim Executive Director for the Du Bois Bunce Center for Public Policy. Good evening to all, good afternoon to all, to the commissioners and everyone on the dais, and to both council members from districts I'm very familiar with. I want to start by saying the Center for Law and Social Justice and engaging in the redistricting process, we look at all districts throughout the 5 boroughs in totality. We do not draw or map any district in isolation because we are concerned about the communities of interest for people of African descent throughout the 5 boroughs. We also know that there are differences between the different levels of government. Congressional district lines and state assembly district lines, we cannot assume that they would mimic city council lines. And so city council, they stay right here in New York City and rally the troops, if you will, for lived legislation and use the community as their backbone. Having said that, the city council needs to maintain as much as possible of its boundaries. We know that there are some changes because there have been a lot of development, gentrification included, but also a lot of immigration and remigration of population. So for example, in districts 35 and 36, where I was raised in 35 and work in 35, if we separate or use Eastern Parkway as the border, we would be separating Crown Heights. We would be creating 2 different communities. We cannot do that. It would be creating a tale of 2 districts, if you will. One side very poor that don't utilize all the aspects and features of District 35 versus another side where many shops and restaurants and bars, et cetera, and people attend and go to school together throughout District 35. The historic Prospect Heights, churches, communities, et cetera. And as noted before, the West Indian American Day Carnival Association and the museum. District 36, we have to keep the boundaries as is as much as possible. We can extend the western boundary a little bit over, maybe 1 block for Clausen Avenue, which some say is a natural boundary for Bedford-Stuyvesant. I would get some arguments there. So in keeping with the 13 districts for people of African descent in the city council, and also the 10 communities of interest that we have throughout the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, we maintain that Sheepshead Bay remain in District 46, Sheepshead Bay housing, that in District 46, which is the Canarsie area, that we also have the Rockaway Parkway train station placed in that district because that serves the districts of Canarsie, also the small business area, et cetera. We maintain that Coney Island should be with all the beach areas so that it would not be an isolated area and would not be left out of the conversation when Hurricane Ida, superstorm, or another superstorm or another hurricane approaches that area. For Staten Island, we had to take 20,000 people from Brooklyn. So that was Adica Heights in the Fort Hamilton Parkway area. For Queens, our beloved Queens, we need to keep 31 with Far Rockaway extended just a little bit for population purposes so that we maintain 3 districts of people of African descent, because we know that there's some conversions of different populations. We think that since there are still 8,000 people in South Ozone Park, that we cannot relinquish South Ozone Park. It's too much people of African descent to just be pushed back to a different boundary and lose a district. We think, not think, but we know District 9 is Central Harlem. And in Central Harlem, there are a lot of firsts, there are a lot of historical movements and institutions, such as the Polo Grounds. And that has to remain the same because Central Harlem is what we have for people of African descent, and all the institutions and forces that are there should remain the same. The Northern Bronx, we have a significant community of interest now sprinkled throughout. The Northern Bronx maintains it, but we think Wakefield has been left out of the conversation. Large Caribbean background, utilizes all the institutions there, the Mashula Parkway Golf Course, et cetera, for all of its events. It should be placed in District 12 and leave the border at Gun Hill Road. And we have a significant community of interest in the Allerton area, right below Gun Hill Road. Try to keep Crotona Park East whole, because we're growing back again in the South Bronx. And actually in that area in District 16, where other districts were losing people of African descent, that district has grown. So more unification in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Robert Smith III.
That was the longest walk to a microphone in my life. That was a joke, but hey, there we go. Thank you. Good afternoon to the Districting Commission and to the public participating in this very glamorous moment of democracy. My name is Robert. I'm a resident of Bedford-Stuyvesant. I'm the president of my block association and a member of Brooklyn Community Board 3. I'm here today to ask each of you to keep the deeply interconnected and historically Black neighborhoods of Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights intact as the 36th district. Even though I live north of Atlantic Avenue on Macon Street, I count Northern Crown Heights as part of my community. We share schools, hospitals, culturally specific arts organizations, subway stations, bus routes, churches, demographics, historic architecture, and importantly, unique relationships to pressing political questions like public safety, gentrification, sanitation, and I can go on and on. And I want to echo, what Paul Spring was saying on Zoom about how the City Council District 36 aligns with Assembly District 56. And I think that this alignment allows for the historical Black residents of Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights to have an important share of political power. And I think within our national context, being dead set on diluting Black electoral power, it's really important that this commission, makes the right decision to draw maps that keeps District 36 intact or as similar as possible, and allow our well-organized and historic Black community to represent and govern itself for the next 10 years and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlos Castellanos.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Castellano, born and raised in Washington Heights and currently reside in Inwood in District 10. I'm here to testify regarding the growth of Council Districts 7 and 10 in Upper Manhattan. I urge the commission to take steps that ensure that districts in Upper Manhattan are compact, that they are not oddly shaped, that communities of interest are served, and that Black and Latino populations are adequately represented on the City Council. To achieve these goals, the commission should include the Polo Grounds as part of the District 10 and ensure the 160s and the 150s remain part of District 7. If District 10 is to grow, the Polo Grounds is the most natural direction natural direction for the district to expand. The Polo Ground is already connected to District 10 via the FDR Highway, all the way up to Dyckman Street. The highway extends down both sides of the district, connecting Dyckman housing to the polo grounds and forming a community of interest. The current northeast part of the District 10 already connects to the FDR highway, which directly connects to the polo grounds as well. Coogan's Bluff, which is currently part of District 10, should serve residents on either side, including those currently in District 10 and the people who reside in the polo grounds towers. The people living on each side of the Coogan's Bluff are equally invested in selecting the council member who will be responsible for this major green space. The polo grounds and the remaining areas of Washington Heights already share representation. For instance, Assembly District 71 currently includes the polo grounds and east of Amsterdam, south of 159th Street. District 10 is already east of Amsterdam, including Amsterdam, St. Nicholas, and Edgecombe. I simply ask that the district continues south along these lines. Finally, the 160s and 150s west of Amsterdam should remain in District 7. Washington Heights has always been represented by at least 2 council members, and shifting these blocks in the heart of Washington Heights would functionally cut representation of this community in half. Programs that have historically received funding from council members representing both districts would likely see their fundings cut in half, even if these needs and poverty in District 10 were to dramatically increase. Cutting the 160s and 150s west of Amsterdam out of District 7 would also dramatically increase the proportion of white voters and reduce the voting power of the substantial Black and Latino population. It will move Community Health Academy of the Heights to District 10, meaning that no high school would operate in District 7 and that all fundings for high school programs would likely need to come from the District 10 budget. District 10 already has 2 high schools. One is George Washington High School Educational Campus, which I was the last graduating class of George Washington High School, and worked in summer youth Gregorio Luperon back when I was a teenager, both of which are in great need of additional support and resources. District 10 is not equipped to provide full attention and resources to a 3rd high school. The 160s cannot be separated from the 150s west of Amsterdam. A number of Hispanic serving institutions operated in the 150s, including Boricua College and the Hispanic Society Museum. And these institutions are likely to thrive if they are represented by a council member elected by the people of Southern Washington Heights who have a historic and cultural connection to these institutions. I'll be providing my testimony in the map outline to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's head to a neighbor on Zoom.
We have Ekram Al-Romaim.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
We have Ekram Al-Romaim.
Ekram Al-Romaim.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
My name is Ikram Al-Rumain, a community health partner at the Academy of Medical and Public Health Services. AMS is a nonprofit healthcare organization in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, working to make healthcare more accessible to marginalized immigrant communities and people of color. So we provide free clinical screenings, bilingual mental health therapy, individualized health education, and social services, primarily with the Chinese, Latino, and Arab communities of Brooklyn and New York, in Sunset Park and Bensonhurst. We are also a member of the APA Voice Redistricting Task Force. APA community in Bensonhurst is a community of interest and should be kept whole as possible. It currently is divided into 4 city council districts, and in none of these 4 districts is a APA community a significant plurality. This is despite the fact that between 2010 and 2020, the APA population of New York City increased by about 345,000 residents. About a third of this increase was in Brooklyn, and between 2010 and 2020, the APA population in Brooklyn increased 3%. To keep the Bensonhurst community of interest as whole as possible, we believe a district can be created that would result in a near majority APA city council district that contains just parts of Bensonhurst. While the APA community in Sunset Park and Bensonhurst may have many shared interests, it's too large to put both neighborhoods in one single district. The APA community in Sunset Park is currently whole in City Council District 38 and should remain whole as possible in a single district. The APA community is a racial minority protected under the Voting Rights Act, and protecting racial and language minorities is a high priority of the city charter. Dividing communities with common interests will only tear our communities farther apart and will just continue to marginalize an already marginalized communities. Dividing Bensonhurst into 4 city council districts means limited resources. It means overpopulated schools, lack of language access, and increased homelessness rates. It means rising food insecurity and unemployment. It means lack of affordable housing and increased violence and crime rates. More divisions mean being unfairly ignored. Therefore, I urge the New York City Districting Commission to keep the APA community of interest in Bensonhurst as whole as possible, and the APA community of interest in Sunset Park as whole as possible. Fair districts are the foundation for fair political and social representation. The right decision must be taken. If not, our communities will live with the results for the next decade. But fair redistricting will allow our communities to fight for their fair share of funding for community-based services, language access, better public safety, and more. Thank you for your time. We hope truly to consider the interest of the different communities who will be impacted. Please keep us together, not divided. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Benjamin Rosenfield.
Good afternoon. My name is Benjamin Rosenfield. I'm a resident of the Manhattan Valley area of the Upper West Side, and I'm here to testify regarding the expansion of District 7. Specifically, I would urge the commission to increase the size of District 7 by expanding west of Broadway and south of 109th Street. All of us are reliant on the same transportation infrastructure, namely the one train and the same exit off the West Side Highway to get home in the evenings. We face the same sanitation issues, which is why we are working together to clean up Broadway Mall and to fight for more composting in the area. We are also working together for a park to park open street across 103rd Street. Increasing the size of District 7 by expanding west of Broadway and south of 109th Street would create greater continuity for the Jewish community, of which I'm a proud member. I worship at the Anshe Chesed Synagogue on 109th Street and West End Avenue, alongside many of my neighbors in District 6 and District 7. Expanding the district in this manner would allow many Jews like myself who live in the area to have our homes and places of worship, as well as community centers, covered in a singular city council district. There's no existing benefit from communities west of Broadway and communities east of Broadway in the 100s having separate representation. We each have the same distinct needs from city government. We frequent the same businesses, eat at the same restaurants, and are impacted by the same developments and advocate for and against policies that affect us in identical ways. There are a few additional specific recommendations I urge the board to keep in mind. First, the towers on the complex on 110th Street should be wholly contained within District 7, rather than having the North Building as part of District 9 and the South Building as part of a District 7. Second, I wish that the Park West Village remained specifically a part of District 7. This economically diverse complex is home to many engaged voters, including many members of minority communities and elderly, whose voices will be diluted if they were moved into another district. Third, the commercial corridor on between 196th Street along Columbus Avenue runs through Park West Village in District 7 and equally serves and employs the people of District 6 and District 7. Finally, I would like to thank the members of the district committee for their time and would like to commend you for the work that you're doing in service of our city and our democracy.
Thank you. Let's head to a neighbor on Zoom.
We have Lori Daniel Favors.
Lori Daniel Favors.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Laurie Daniel Favors, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am here on behalf of the Center for Law and Social Justice at the Medgar Evers College. My family home is in Bedford-Stuyvesant District 36, where my father spent the first half of his life. My mother lives there to this day, and I work in the beautiful district of 35 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. CLSJ is a racial justice law center that envisions a civically educated and engaged political electorate that is consistently building political political power to marshal the representation and resources needed for our communities to thrive. Prior to this hearing, CLSJ submitted a citywide map that outlines our 13 districts that comprise significant and performing communities of interest of people of African descent. And in addition to those 13 districts, we also submitted a map outlining our additional 10 communities of interest that are located outside of those districts and which should be maintained regardless of whatever district they are drawn into. People of African descent, the population of people of African descent in Brooklyn increased over the past decade. And as Brooklyn consistently boasts the largest population of diverse communities of African descent in the city, that overall growth accounted for nearly 40% of the Black population increase in our city. Neighborhoods like in central Brooklyn, like Bedford-Stuyvesant, Crown Heights, East New York, Brownsville, Prospect Heights, Prospect Lefferts Garden, Flatbush, East Flatbush, and more recently, Canarsie and Flatlands collectively have the largest and most concentrated Black populations in all of North America. And the communities of interest in these areas saw exponential growth through influxes of people of African descent from the South, Caribbean, Africa, and of course, Spanish-speaking people of African descent from Latin America and South America, while others relocated from other New York neighborhoods to be closer to their respective communities of interest. For those reasons, we urge you to maintain adherence to the redistricting criteria as noted by my colleague, Dr. Blair. We do not draw maps on single district bases. We look at the city as a whole. And for example, while Council Districts 35 and 36 have much in common, including the fact that they both struggle with population loss due to lack of affordable housing and gentrification, they are in fact made up of two different communities of interest, and that should be respected and preserved. We also advocate that you strive to keep the shoreline communities together and not allow them to be divided. Communities like those in Coney Island, Manhattan Beach, and Brighton Beach, those communities should be maintained as a community of interest as they all face similar challenges that transcend their respective populations. And it is important that communities like Coney Island are not isolated away from other shore-based communities of interest as a way of ensuring that their short-term and long-term needs can be met. Additionally, we urge that the Sheepshead Bay housing community be maintained in District 46 because that too is a community of interest that should be kept as a whole. I will be submitting my full written testimony along with a copy of the Center for Law and Social Justice People of African Descent in New York City report, currently available on our website. And I refer you again to our previously submitted district maps and the community of interest maps for additional details. I would also note that the Center for Law and Social Justice is a member of the Unity Map Coalition, which is comprised of our organization, the Asian American Legal Defense Fund, and Latino Justice Pro-Def. And we are working to also submit maps for your consideration, which demonstrate an equitable distribution of power based on census data and our data-driven understanding of the geoplacement of our communities of interest. And we look forward to engaging with the commission further. Thank you.
Thank you. Banny Chen.
Commissioners, my name is Banny Chen, and since birth to just about a year ago, I lived in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, a neighborhood community, a neighboring community from Bensonhurst. I am 28 years old now, and I live in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, still a short distance from Bensonhurst. Bensonhurst, like Sunset Park, has a rooted and growing population of Chinese Americans. In 2020, I helped APA Voice in efforts to get residents of Bensonhurst to complete the 2020 census. We did so by walking the streets of Bensonhurst, making stops to engage with local businesses and even residents on the street. We walked from the area of the J-Mart supermarket of New Utrecht Avenue to where the elevated subway trains taper off at Stillwell Avenue and 86th Street. We did this in multiple days in order to cover as much ground as we could. Each day that we walked, it was evident that there existed a strong Chinese American community. The residents communicated with one another in Chinese. I could make out Cantonese, Mandarin, Fujianese, and my home dialect of Toisan, Taiwanese. The local bakeries, restaurants, businesses had their names displayed above their doors in both English and Chinese, sometimes only in Chinese. A bulk of the members of Bensonhurst are Chinese American. Unlike the Asian American community in Sunset Park, which is kept whole in District 38, Bensonhurst is divided into 4 city council districts. If the geographical Districting of the community continues to be split into 4 different districts. The voices of Asian Americans residents will be diluted. I asked that the district maps be drawn so that those with common interests who live in the same neighborhood be kept to the same district to the best extent possible. I feel that this is something very reasonable to ask for. I encourage all of you to walk the streets of Bensonhurst so that you can see for yourselves what I had saw. Thank you.
Thank you. Who do we have next up on Zoom?
We have Deborah Young.
Deborah Young.
Yes, I'm here. My name is Deborah Young, and I live in the 35th district. I am also the president and co-founder of the Crown Heights North Association, and I also serve as the second vice chair of Community Board 8. I want to thank Chair Walcott and the commission for this opportunity. And Chair Walcott, you may not know me as Deborah Young, and I'm not going to date us, but we did our undergraduate or internship together, and you knew me as Debbie Cuffey at that time. So it's good seeing you. I submitted a testimony that is a little lengthy, so I'm just going to take the key points and share at this point. Currently, the Crown Heights North community is split between the 35th and 36th council districts. Clearly, this fragmentation impacts the residents of our community. We are fortunate to have 2 council members who are hardworking, conscientious, engaged, and fully committed to the working together for their constituents and the common good. Nonetheless, the schism, however, impacts our ability to be represented as a complete community. For example, on any given street, one side can be represented by the 35th, while the neighbors across the street are represented by the 36th. While our goals may be similar or even the same, this arbitrary division forces us to work with 2 offices, 2 staff, 2 representatives in any endeavor, making just about everything much more complicated and time-consuming than it needs to be for both our representatives and the community. We need to be joined as one to foster our cultural, religious, and other related commonalities. Ideally, it is in Crown Heights North's community's best interest to be in one council district, making us whole. And it's hard to testify because we've been successful and we work very well with both our representatives in the 35th and 36th, but we think it's equally as important that we be made whole. So we urge the commission to ensure that streets are not divided down the middle and that the boundaries of our district maintain the integrity of existing neighborhoods. As state and congressional boundaries split neighborhoods and have resulted in my district having 4 members of Congress, whereas it previously had 2, it is imperative that we ensure council districts truly include entire neighborhoods and communities. I thank you for this opportunity.
If I may, for 1 second, just say, while I won't date the year, I will say, if I remember correctly, Columbia School of Social Work. So I do remember, but I will not say the year, not for my benefit, but for mutual benefit. So thank you. Good seeing you.
Thank you. Cesar Ruiz.
Good evening, Commissioners of the New York City Redistricting Commission, and thank you for providing me with the opportunity to testify. My name is Cesar Ruiz. I'm an attorney and legal fellow at Latino Justice. Latino Justice is a Latino civil rights organization that fights for equitable treatment of Latinos under the law. We have actively participated in the New York City redistricting process over the past several decades, and we are proud to join our partners of the Unity Coalition Project, All Deaf Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, and Center for Law and Social Justice at Medgar Evers College in that effort once again. And we hope to have maps for you soon. I want to start by highlighting the immense growth of New York City's Latinx community over the past 10 years. According to recent US Census Bureau data, Latinos comprise 28.3% of the city's total population and have added over 150,000 residents. Particularly in Brooklyn, we've added over 20,000 residents with a growth rate of 4.1% over the past 10 years. Plainly, this expansion warrants a configuration of city council districts that accurately reflect that growth. Now, shifting to mapping suggestions, I think the first point is just reflecting on some of the changes and particularly the impact of gentrification, which has shifted traditional Latinx populations throughout Brooklyn. It's no secret that there has been unprecedented historic development of these areas, particularly in Williamsburg and Bushwick, which has disproportionately displaced many Latinx residents, given the lack of affordable housing. So recognizing this impact, it's important that we follow these trends, which show the Latinx community has shifted into neighboring areas, including Ridgewood, Cypress Hills, and Woodhaven. Future districts have to reflect this reality and endeavor to connect these communities to ensure that their vote isn't diluted. Recognizing the demographic trends and shifts that I had mentioned previously, we want to highlight that it's important that we continue the crossing between Brooklyn and Queens as currently configured in current District 34. This connects the communities of Williamsburg, Bushwick, and Ridgewood. Their combination has enabled them to consistently elect candidates of their choice, which protects their interests and adequately represents their shared cultural, economic, and social interests. Additionally, we're also suggesting that any future configurations of existing District 38 be kept compact, centering Sunset Park and Red Hook as it currently does. These neighborhoods share a rich history of social activism and share many cultural, social, and economic interests, warranting a continued pairing. Lastly, we turn to Hope Gardens, which is a Latinx community of interest that is currently split between existing Districts 34 and 37. To remedy the issue of the split, we're suggesting that you bring the remaining part of Hope Gardens left out of existing 37 into the district as opposed to having it split. And to guide that boundary and to effectively make that change, we're suggesting a shift of the southern boundary to Broadway, which would capture the entirety of Hope Gardens community of interest within existing District 37. Lastly, I just wanted to highlight that the commission is subject to the newly passed John R. Lewis New York Voting Rights Act. In the spirit of the late and great John R. Lewis, the law was enacted to ensure that there was unfettered access to the ballot, including the redistricting process, which has historically had the effect of diluting the vote of racial, ethnic, and language minority community members. Simply put, the commission is bound by New York state law to ensure that the resulting district lines do not diminish the ability of Latinx, Black, and Asian communities to elect candidates of their choice. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to submitting maps in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom,
We have Jerry Vadamala.
Jerry Vadamala.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Vadamala. I'm the director of the Democracy Program at the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, ALDEF. We are a national organization headquartered in New York. We were founded in 1974. Our mission is to protect the civil rights of Asian Americans, and we've been involved in redistricting since the 1980 redistricting cycle. ALDEF is a member of the Unity Map Coalition, along with Latino Justice, as well as the Center for Law and Social Justice at Medgar Evers College. We are also a founding member of the APA Voice Redistricting Task Force. I do want to highlight to the commission that we have already submitted our 16 Asian American communities of interest boundary lines. So we submitted that list to you with links to our community of interest maps. There are 16 of them with input from our partners at APA Voice and other organizations that give you the street boundaries. And that was asked earlier by Commissioner Go. That gives you the north, south, east, west boundaries of all of our communities of interest. And as I had testified earlier, what we're asking you to do is to try and keep those communities of interest whole to the extent possible. And any map that is being considered, to please superimpose those 16 Asian American communities of interest to get a sense of the community is being kept whole or not. When you do that with the current lines, you'll see that in Brooklyn, our community of interest of Bensonhurst is divided into 4 different city council districts. which is really not acceptable. In Queens, Richmond Hill, South Ozone Park is divided among 3 different districts. We're hoping with this commission, we can remedy those problems. As mentioned by my colleagues, we are working on a unity map for city council. It will be a full 51 district map that we believe is the most fair and equitable for the communities of color protected under the Federal Voting Rights Act. And that it complies with the charter and other federal and local requirements. As mentioned earlier by some of my colleagues, the Asian community was the fastest growing racial group in the city. In Brooklyn in particular, the growth was 43%, 43% growth, the highest growth rate in the borough. In Queens, it was 29%, and Manhattan, 24%. So these new lines should reflect that growth. They should reflect that growth of the Asian American community in their respective boroughs, in particular in Brooklyn, where we're hoping to see that change with Bensonhurst being kept completely within one city council district. We know it's possible and that it would result in an almost majority Asian American district in city council. Asian Americans, as I mentioned, are a protected group under the Federal Voting Rights Act, and the charter specifically mentions it has, as you all know, this prioritized list. First, their population equality, and the second item on this prioritized list is that there must be fair and effective representation for language and racial minorities protected under the Federal Voting Rights Act. That includes the Black, Latino, and Asian community in New York City. That must be considered before looking at other communities of interest. And we know there are other communities of interest that don't fall into that category, that are not protected by the Federal Voting Rights Act. And that includes religious groups, waterfront communities, you name it. There's a lot of other communities of interest we know in Brooklyn and the rest of the city, but those can only be considered after ensuring there is fair and effective representation for language and racial minorities protected under the Federal Voting Rights Act. So we're expecting adherence to the city council prioritized, the city charter prioritized list for this redistricting process. I should also mention there are performing districts for these protected groups. These are districts that are electing candidates of their choice in their respective districts. Those districts should not be retrogressed or dismantled in any way to make it harder for these communities to continue to elect candidates of their choice. They currently do have fair and effective representation in these performing majority or plurality districts. And just to give you examples, I'll give you some in Queens, districts 20, 23, 25, 26. It's not a coincidence that many of these districts keep our communities of interest almost entirely whole. That's why they're performing. So those should not be dismantled or retrogressed in the new plan. We look forward to working with you on this and submitting a unity map for your consideration. But as I mentioned, you do have our 16 Asian American communities of interest that we hope you will use and superimpose over any plan, including our plan, which we'll submit to you to analyze whether these communities have been kept whole or not. And we're hoping that they are kept whole in compliance with the Charter and the Federal Voting Rights Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Ari Kagan.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Councilman Ari Kagan. I represent 47th Councilmanic District in Southern Brooklyn. Currently includes beautiful neighborhoods of Seagate, Coney Island, Worbus, Beach Haven, Gravesend, Bensonhurst, and West Beach. I would like to say that before the last redistricting, 47th district looked different because, for example, Worbus houses is a high-risers, and they're absolutely neighboring to Tram Village, Luna Park, Brightwater Towers. And also, I would like to emphasize that previously 47th district was inside and he's currently inside this district in the 46th Assembly District, in the Community Board 13, in the same congressional district, in the same senatorial district. So it's absolutely logical to have similar communities, similar even size of the buildings is 20 floors. and similar issues. It's all waterfront communities. I'm chair of Waterfront and Resiliency Committee. They should be in the same council district, number 47. Right now, like neighbors from Vorbas, they're saying why across the street we have residents in a different councilmanic district. Constantly in our office is located on 445 Neptune Avenue. We're getting phone calls and requests and people coming in from Luna Park, from Trump Village, from Bright Water Towers, and from Brighton Beach. I'm not talking about entire Brighton Beach. I'm talking about half of Brighton Beach all the way till Coney Island Avenue. It will be fair to Russian Americans, to Muslim Americans to be in the same district. It will be fair to residents of these high-risers. It makes total sense, even if you're talking about contiguous district. Right now, my district, it looks like headless body with one hand like this, doesn't make any sense. So this head should be in another district, It's not contagious, So, and again, it was the way I'm talking about, it was before last redistricting, before 2012. And I think it should stay this way like it was before last redistricting. And I know many communities in my district feel the same way. I was once at the hearings with several Chinese American groups. They're saying they don't want to be split in 4 council districts. I talked to many leaders of Pakistani American community and to many leaders of the Russian speaking American community, Italian American community. Everybody's saying the same, that it will benefit all communities in 47th district to come back to the lines that were in effect before last redistricting. I hope you will consider it and we'll make this change. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your great work.
Thank you. Zoom, please.
We have Elizabeth Oyang.
Elizabeth Oyang.
Hi, I apologize first for my attire. I don't know if you can see it, but it says I am a volleyball aunt. I am in, like Commissioner Walcott family called, and I'm at my nephew's national tournament, volleyball tournament in Orlando, Florida. It was very important that I be here. I've missed all his games because of COVID. And he understands that I am missing his game now. I caught his first game as a nail-biting tiebreaker. He lost, but he knows that I can't be there watching him now. There's 2,000 people below me in this sports center because this is important. He understands. I am the coordinator of APA Voice Redistricting Task Force. And as Jerry Valdemala said just before me from ALDEF, our coalition of 21 groups contributed to the neighborhood community of interest maps that they have already submitted to the commission. 3 of those community of interests is in Brooklyn: Sheepshead Bay, Sunset Park, and Bensonhurst. Sheepshead Bay and Sunset Park are largely kept whole in one single district. But Bensonhurst, as you've heard, is divided into 4 different districts. And this is critical, not only because it loots Asian American power and a community of interest that has so many things in common, but it also prevents Asian Americans from fully participating in civic engagement because it dilutes our community, and not only are APAs not willing to run for office, but it impacts our community's ability to vote. And if that their vote will make a difference. And it's important as well because given, as you've heard over and over again, the undisputed fact of the growth of the APA community in Brooklyn, that not one of these 4 districts is a majority APA city council district, or even a near majority APA city council district. We believe it is possible to keep Bensonhurst as whole as possible by creating a near majority APA district. This is long overdue. And I hope the commission will address this. It is the neighborhood that is divided the most in the APA communities of interest, Bensonhurst. And in response to Commissioner Go's questions, as Jerry said, the maps and the boundaries have been submitted, but just in general, we're talking about the community of interest in Bensonhurst that from the west, 14th Avenue, to the north, 55th Street, then on the east, McDonald Avenue, to South Shore Parkway on this. And so I hope that you will listen not only to Jerry's testimony, but also the testimonies of UCAB that testified earlier, Stephanie Wong, Ekram, who testified from Academy of Medical Public Health Services. CPC is about to testify, the largest social service organization in Brooklyn for Asian Americans, as well as in the city, as well as the individuals who have also testified in support of keeping our communities of interest as whole as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kevin Corte.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll keep this extremely brief since you've literally just heard this. I am a member of Community Board 7 in Manhattan, and I'd like to talk about Community District 7 and Community District 10 in Manhattan, both of which have lost population. Just 3 points. I agree and concur with the comments you've already heard. We'd love to see the district expanded to the west of 96th Street to include both sides of Broadway. Our main street, as you would imagine, is Broadway, and it's currently split between 2 different districts, and that's not an ideal situation. It makes the forming of business administrations a little more difficult. We have some initiatives like the 103 Park to Park initiative, which is to create an open street that spans from Riverside Park to Central Park. That's made more difficult by the fact that that covers 2 different council districts. And generally, north of 96th is Bloomingdale. It's Manhattan Valley, and it's very much a cohesive unit. Has a large Hispanic population, of which I'm a member, and the unity between that district and streets to the north on 125th all the way up to Washington Heights is a lot stronger than it would be otherwise. Last, I'll just conclude with District 10, which has also lost a lot of population, formerly lived in District 10. There's a little sliver at the bottom, which is Coogan's Bluff. It's part of the Highbridge Park. One side is in one district, and the other, who is residents of the Polo Grounds complex, are completely cut off between that cliff and the FDR highway. That part should make a lot more sense as being part of Manhattan Community Board District 10. We'll submit written testimony on behalf of Community Board 7, and so I'll let you read more there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom.
We have Ashley Chen.
Ashley Chen.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ashley Chen, and I'm a policy fellow with the Chinese American Planning Council, CPC. The mission of CPC is to promote the social and economic empowerment of Chinese American, immigrant, and low-income communities. CPC is a proud member of APA Voice Redistricting Task Force. CPC is the largest AAPI social service organization in the US, providing vital resources to more than 125,000 people per year in all 51 council districts. CPC has more than 50 programs at over 30 sites, primarily across the Lower East Side and Chinatown in Manhattan, Sunset Park in Brooklyn, and Flushing, Queens. CPC employs over 700 staff whose comprehensive services are linguistically accessible and culturally sensitive. CPC directly serves the APA communities in Brooklyn, including Bensonhurst from our community center in Sunset Park, which provides services in English, Mandarin, Cantonese, Fujianese, and Taishanese. These services include childhood education, nutrition, mental health, senior services, career services, immigration, legal help, and more to nearly 24,000 community members. As we learned from the recent 2020 census data, AAPI communities are the fastest growing racial group in the city. There has been an incredible 210% increase in the Asian population in Brooklyn over the last 10 years, and the APA community in Bensonhurst is a community of interest with a shared need for culturally responsive services. It has the largest population of residents born in China and Hong Kong out of any neighborhood in New York City, and has been coined as Brooklyn's second Chinatown after Sunset Park. The APA community in Sunset Park is currently whole in City Council District 38 and should remain so. However, the APA community in Bensonhurst is currently divided into 4 city council districts with APAs ranging from 17% to 30% in districts 44, 47, 43, and 38 respectively. Bensonhurst needs to be kept as whole as possible. While Bensonhurst might be too big to be in one city council district, there's a way to keep Bensonhurst as whole as possible that can result in at least one near majority APA city council district. From a service provider perspective, it is important to keep the community as whole as possible because it ensures more voting power for our communities to elect a candidate of their choice. It is critical that we elect candidates that respond meaningfully to the needs and demands of our communities. Furthermore, we have continued to see the disproportionate distribution of public funding to community-based organizations serving AAPI communities despite the rapidly growing population. More specifically, the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families reported that organizations serving the Asian American Pacific Islander community received 4.37% of city council discretionary dollars and less than 1.5% of social service contract dollars. In the midst of a health crisis, we need to ensure that our communities are heavily invested in, which is precisely why the redistricting process needs to be as fair and transparent as possible. In order to prevent the dilution of APA community power and representation, we urge the Commission to keep communities of interest intact. Unfair redistricting will divide rapidly growing communities, minimize their concerns, and deprive them of effective representation for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom.
We have Tyron Allen.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Tyron Allen.
Tyron Allen.
Let's try Jack Plushnick.
Jack Plushnick.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm kind of just in the middle of, there we go. There we go. Good evening. Thank you. I wanted to thank the commissioners and I wanted to thank the redistricting, districting commission on reviewing and listening to our testimonies regarding the redistricting of city council districts here in Brooklyn throughout the city. I am a member, or I used to be a member of the city council, not a staffer with the city council. I was formerly for 7 years working in the 48th council district. I also did constituent services there, legislation for the member that used to be there. I also am a vice president and former president of a nonprofit in the district as well. And I have a long history in the district. It's for that reason that I think it's incredibly important that when redistricting consideration is taken into account for the 48 council district, that the redistricting commission considers including the original lines that existed in the district prior to 2013, before the previous redistricting. It used to be that the district went up to Avenue I, the 48th council district is, by the way, the district I'm talking about. The 48th council district used to go up to Avenue I, comprising of the larger Orthodox Jewish community. I happen to be, as I mentioned before, a vice president, former president of a Jewish organization, a synagogue in the district. Currently, the district is split, the Orthodox community in the district is split in half between the 45th and the 48th city council district. I think it's incredibly important and imperative that we reintroduce and re-include the Orthodox community so they can be properly represented, and that way they have a voice in the council more than they were able to before due to the split that happened in 2013. Additionally, with regard to the Sheepshead Bay Nostrand housing project that is right outside the district, previously those NYCHA projects were included in the district prior to 2013. Those residents that live in those buildings regularly use the transit hubs that are in the 48th council district. Those are transit hubs that are used by people both in the 48th and in the neighboring 46th city council district, which is where the Sheepshead Bay Nostrand housing is currently. Without the Sheepshead Bay Nostrand housing projects being included in the 48th district, the residents of those of those housing projects aren't able to effectively have a member who can advocate for them when it comes to those vital transit hubs on Nostrand Avenue, one of the most vital transit hubs for those projects. It's the largest transit hub in that district, for those projects currently. So it's for that reason that I think that's incredibly important that the Sheepsway Nostrand housing get re-included into the 48th Council District as well. With that being said, I also feel that Coney Island, which is currently included in the district, should no longer be included in the district. The Coney Island section of the district is splitting off from the Coney Island section, the Coney Island district, which represents all of Coney Island. So I think that the Coney Island section should be taken out of the district as well. With that, I just wanted to thank again the commission and thank you for the time to allow me to give my testimony regarding the 48th Council District.
Thank you. Next on Zoom,
We have Eli Cohen.
Eli Cohen.
Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to testify. I just want to put my video on. 1 second. Technically challenged. Hi from my name Evers, and very proud of your people from that great institution. Just attended the graduation there last week. Crown Heights Jewish Community Council, of which I'm the executive director, is a representative organization of the over 70 Jewish congregations of the Crown Heights neighborhood and surrounding areas in central Brooklyn. And submit this testimony on behalf of the community of common interest that has historically seen its voice diminished by being split into 3 or 4 separate city council districts. We are proposing a map of not an entire district, but of a section that should be kept together within one council district. The section is from Rogers Avenue on the west, Rochester Avenue and the park on the east, and from Sterling Place on the north side down to Clarkson Avenue in the south, with a little corner of down Remsen Avenue also. So that map which we'll submit as part of this testimony, shows all those 70 synagogues mapped out and about a dozen schools, and pretty much all the Jewish residents of that area in that square, and all the children who live in that square all attend school and synagogue within that square. So it's a very compact and clear boundary that of the 90,000 residents that are there. So it's not a full council district, but 90,000 residents. We would have about 6,000 households comprising about 23,000 individuals. So they would not be more than 17% of that square, and of a total council district, not more than about 10%. So what the point of raising these numbers is that it will be possible to keep this district of interest, this community of interest together without compromising issues of voting rights issues with regard to not looking at a majority of anything district. We're talking about a distinct minority within a larger district, which is mostly African American and Caribbean American residents. So, and interestingly enough, our organization has been involved in a lot of communal work with our African American and Caribbean American partners. So that's still a very homogeneous and very well defined district that includes most of Community Board 8 and Community Board 9, north and south of Eastern Parkway. I just want to describe in a minute how this really is a community of interest. The vast majority of the Jewish residents, white, non-Hispanic residents of this area are affiliated in some form or other with the Chabad Lubavitch movement. So it's one religious movement centered at the main synagogue, which is 770 Eastern Parkway, right in the center. And we've had as many as 15,000 people from this area gather in one place at one event several times on the parkway in the course even of the last year. So it's a really, really tight group. On the high holidays, the entire community comes to the main synagogue for the ceremony of casting the sins into the water. There's a little fountain over there where they worship. Year round, they meet for prayers in the smaller congregations that are, again, all within this area, and at storefronts and private homes in the area where where this group gathers. And the 5,000 school-age children who live in this area mostly attend these 12 religious day schools in this area. So it's a very tight area, which right now is split into 3 districts, which means 35, 40, and 41. So it's really, right now we're being divided into 3 districts with the line right at the center of the district of these, where these 3 districts come together. And the only priority that goes more than, according to the charter, the only priority greater than keeping the interests together is voting rights. And I think since this is a relatively small group, it can be kept together and still not impinge on any voting rights issues. And therefore I submit the testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Is there anyone in person who did not get a chance to sign in who wanted to testify? I just want to check before I continue on with the Zoom. No takers? Okay, we'll continue on with our neighbors on Zoom.
We have Thomas Gilroy.
Thomas Gilroy?
Yes, hello, hi there. My name is Thomas Gilroy. I'm a community activist who's worked with a variety of organizations across New York City in a variety of different places in New York City. And specifically, I'd like to testify today to talk about the 36th district representing Bedford-Stuyvesant and North Crown Heights. I've worked as a community activist and organizer in the area for a while now. And looking at the ways the neighborhood has been affected and changed over the past 10 years, 15 years, I'd just like to testify to the effect that it is just so important to keep the neighborhood of Crown Heights and Bedford-Stuyvesant group together. The incredible amount of history and culture tied in with Brooklyn's Black community that is present in both of those neighborhoods is incredibly valuable. And because of the ways that the neighborhood is changing, because of the money coming in, thanks to gentrification and real estate development, the integrity of the communities, of the Black communities in the area are more and more a threat every day. Right now, grouped together in District 36, it's a fairly tight, cohesive area. It has a great degree of overlap with District 50, with Assembly District 56, allowing for communication and collaboration between them. And it essentially allows the people of Bed-Stuy and the people of Crown Heights to have a strong voice in their governance at the city level, at the state level. And preserving that is something that I think needs to be prioritized in redistricting. As the area becomes more and more fragmented, there is an increasing chance that the neighborhood's Black and Brown communities are going to find themselves increasingly balkanized into other districts and cut off from each other, and in doing so lose their ability to speak up for themselves, to speak up for the rights of the people in the neighborhood. I think that it's important that the territorial integrity, or the integrity of the districts of District 36 be preserved in order to make sure that the people of Bed-Stuy can continue to have a strong voice for themselves and continue to represent themselves and be heard at the city level. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom.
We have Sheikh Ghalib Rahman.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Sheikh Ghalib Rahman.
Sheikh Ghalib Rahman.
Hello there. I represent District 24 in Jamaica, Queens, and I'm here to see what's going on today. But I do like to raise a voice for South Asian voters, and we would like to request to have a South Asian district around Jamaica and Richmond Hill, because we are the second largest population. And I don't have much details today, but I would like to join the next one and come up with more particular requests. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Alexa Aviles.
Alexa Aviles.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Walcott and the commission for allowing me to testify today. My name is Alexa Viles. I am the city council member of Council District 38 in South Brooklyn. And I will be submitting my testimony in written form. And I'm essentially testifying today for a few critical considerations related to the redistricting process. New York has learned many lessons following the recently concluded state and congressional redistricting processes. And at this juncture, we have time and opportunity to do better. So first, the commission, I would recommend, would prioritize keeping districts compact with an eye towards keeping communities of interest together. South Brooklyn communities often face intersectional struggles on key issues such as the environment, social justice, economic insecurity, language access, all known too well, and housing instability. Compact districts would allow for stronger representation as communities can collectively leverage their concerns and organize around shared interests. As such, District 38 should remain majority Latino district, largely due to this intersectional struggles faced by this community. Second, I just would love for the commission to consider the history of representation within a particular geography. Our district includes Red Hook and Sunset Park, which has been shared across city, state, and federal levels of government. The commission should take this history into account as we consider the redistricting. We are now being presented with an opportunities for communities to coalesce around a set of elected officials that truly represent their interests. And history tells us that gerrymandered districts result in neighbors on the periphery feeling not only left out, but disenfranchised. And lastly, would recommend that the commission should keep an eye out for community board cohesion. Many council districts overlap with several community boards. And we, in particular, currently overlap with 5. As an elected official, our mandate is to serve everyone. And while our office, is my time up?
You can have a bit more time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm almost done. Something
okay.
weird happened on the screen. Apologies. So I was just, I will wrap up by saying, community board cohesion should be a consideration also in the process. And I just want to thank the commission for their work. It is my hope that we learn from the mistakes of the past and avoid gerrymandering practices that has resulted in mistrust and disaffection in many of our communities. Thank you so much for your work, and I will submit my testimony.
Thank you. Next on Zoom.
There are no more testifiers on Zoom.
Okay. So we will now take a 10-minute break. And yeah, we will resume the hearing in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello? Hello? Hello. Hi, this is Joy Chowdhury. I am a community organizer in Woodside, Jackson Heights. I actually ran for office in the past. I ran from a seat where it's only 20% South Asian. Therefore, it's been, even though the district was majority immigrant and I was the only immigrant candidate, I was not able to do good because of lack of community presence in my district. So I would like to see a solid South Asian district instead of having South Asian neighborhood divided into like 5-6 different districts. I think that'll help our community to empower ourselves and have a seat at the decision-making table. Thank you so much.
So I feel that it should be the districts in the Brighton Beach area, the Coney Island, the Bath Beach, and also the Beach Haven should be combined with the 47 district so that all becomes one large territory where we can exercise some influence over the electoral process. It has been a tough battle for our community because we've noticed that we have been neglected over the years. And unless we feel a change in the redistricting, we will never be able to have a voice that we can raise and get our issues addressed. We don't have resources coming into our territory at all in our neighborhood, none whatsoever. So we're always struggling using private funds. And during the pandemic, we used our private funds for a very long period of time to take care of the food needs of the community. And I think that after a little bit of struggle, we got some help, but we still feel that we are not able to raise enough awareness among the electoral process, in the electoral process, so we can have our voices heard. So I feel the Muslim community in the Brighton Beach, Beach Haven, Bath Beach, all of this should be into one contiguous area where we can exercise some influence. Thank you.
Thank you.
On this brief lull, Mr. Siddiqui, what would be very helpful to the commission if at some point you could define the street boundaries of the Pakistani community in those neighborhoods that would encompass the neighborhoods that you're concerned about. If you could, you don't have to do it literally right this minute.
I also submitted a written testimony, so I think that.
And it does have that
It
information
does have
in
the
it?
descriptive, yes.
Okay. A map helps.
I didn't have a map, but I can come back and give you a little.
Or you don't even have to come back. On this card, there is an email address that you could just upload that information to
Okay,
the
excellent.
commission.
Okay.
And we will follow up with that as
All right.
well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
We, we may have some folks on Zoom. Shah Nawaz.
Yes, I have a request to the commission, that is Jackson Heights, Woodside, Elmars. There should be a districting on South Asian district. Under this area is a South Asian district.
Is that a question? Okay. Thank you.
Hello, this is Mr. Udin, brother Shahnaz. Are you still there? Shahnaz, you are still there?
Yes, I'm still there.
Would you kindly explain what you mean by a South Asian district in those areas? Can you elaborate on us?
Actually, the Jackson Heights, Woodside, and the Elmars area, our so a lot of South Asian business and South Asians peoples are living there. So we need a district for this area. That is our proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
College. On July 7th, we'll at Staten Island Borough Hall. Then, after we've completed this round, our commissioners have been in all 5 boroughs and have heard all New Yorkers. And now they have to get to work with the staff here. And in about 30 days, we will be releasing a map. And then you will have opportunity, the public, to comment on this first map released by the commission, and the city council will have the opportunity also. Notice some council members were here today also to submit testimony on this very important process and work. So we thank you for being here this evening. Don't forget that email address. At any time you could submit any information you want to get to the commissioners. And have a good evening and safe get home. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for their time, those who testified, those who listened, and my fellow commissioners. Let's see. I think Chair Wall. No problem. Chair Walcott would like to say a few words as we wrap up.
Oh, thank you very much. I just want to thank all of you and those who testified as well, and look forward to seeing all of you in the Bronx and then in Staten Island next week. So thank you all for participating, and all to the commissioners as well.
Thank you. And I think that adjourns our hearing. We will see you next week in the Bronx and on Staten Island. Thank you.